I'm Casey Claiborne, and thanks for coming to the Fox 7 Austin YouTube channel for this CrimeWatch YouTube exclusive. We're taking a look at some of the most talked about recent crime stories around Texas. Let's start with an update on a story we talked about on a previous CrimeWatch episode. Lex Irvin escaped from a mental hospital in North Texas on June 26th. Irvin was taken into custody on July 10th, hundreds of miles from where he was last seen, but in the same city where he killed his own father nearly a decade ago. Fox 7 Austin's Carissa Limcall has that story.
Missing for 2 weeks.
It was really, really scary.
A mother's worst nightmare, especially for this mother.
I was worried about Lex, of course, and I was also worried about anybody that he might come in contact with. And then I was worried that he would find somebody in my family and potentially harm them.
In 2014, a Travis County jury found Lex Irvin, who is autistic, not guilty of murder by reason of insanity in the death of his father. He was committed to the North Texas State Hospital in Vernon in April of this year, escaping weeks later on June 26th. The 2-week search ended in Northwest Austin Sunday night. Irvin was found by Austin police officers after a welfare check call, found near one of the homes his mother owns in Austin. The news brought relief.
Oh yeah, I'm thrilled.
But for his mother, questions do remain. How did Irvin, off his meds, manage to travel more than 300 miles? And how did he manage to escape originally? She's still working to find answers.
I believe it was gross incompetence by North Texas State Hospital, and I will not rest until I find out what happened. Not just because of my son, but because the community is in danger.
We previously reached out to Health and Human Services, which oversees the North Texas State Hospital after Irvin's escape. In a statement shared with Fox 7, HHS said, in part, "We take the safety and security of our state hospitals and our community seriously. If a person makes an unauthorized departure from a state hospital, we immediately investigate, notify law enforcement, and notify HHSC provider investigations when appropriate." In the meantime,
I'm waiting for a call, actually, because I'm pretty sure I'll be his first call. I can't wait to hear what happened because Lex and I are pretty close, even with everything that happened. I mean, he killed my husband. He killed his dad. But I realized that this was his illness, not my son. I love him unconditionally and I support him.
Irvin was booked into the Travis County Jail on an escape warrant. It's not clear when or if he'll be sent back to Wilbarger County. Staying in Austin now, where a cyclist is offering up a $50,000 reward. He wants the hit-and-run driver who killed a friend he was biking with to be brought to justice. Fox 7 Austin's Shannon Ryan has that story.
Keith had a joy for life and adventure that was absolutely irreplaceable.
In March, Keith Culver set out on his third cross-country cycling trip, planning to ride from California to Florida with a tour group of 11. It was a 74-year-old's last great adventure.
First I knew was allowed almost the sound of an explosion, as I don't know to this day whether it was the sound of him being hit or me being hit or both of us being hit together.
Keith and his friend of nearly 2 decades, Lori Alayan, were hit by a car on Austin's East Stastny Lane near Burleson Road. They were wearing fluorescent colors, flashing lights, and halfway through the trip.
But I could tell that he was hurting and in much worse condition than I was. And so I rolled over onto my hands and knees and crawled to him because I just needed to tell him how much I loved him. And I wasn't sure if he was going to make it or not, but I wanted him to know that he was loved. And I wanted him to know how special of a person that he was.
Keith was taken off of life support at the hospital. Lori survived. The car, small and dark with 4 doors, never stopped.
In retrospect, it's interesting that none of the vehicles who passed us stopped. Not the person who hit us. There were a couple of the cars around them.
Dwight Yackley was riding ahead of Lori and Keith. He hopes somebody knows something and is now offering a $50,000 reward for information leading to an arrest.
For me, it's just wrong that somebody would hit 2 people on a bike and not have the decency to stop.
Shannon Ryan, Fox 7 Austin News.
In Bastrop County, a Bastrop ISD teacher is accused of having improper relationships with 2 students at Cedar Creek High School. The incidents allegedly happened in December of last year and this past March. The Texas Education Agency keeps track of these types of incidents, and this past school year, there were hundreds reported. The district acted quickly when they heard of these allegations. Meanwhile, the teacher's lawyer denies any of this happened. Fox 7 Austin's Bridget Spencer has the details.
Roy Franks is charged with 2 counts of indecency with a child and 2 counts of an improper relationship with a student. He's accused of inappropriately touching 2 children while they were enrolled at Cedar Creek High School. The incidents allegedly occurred in December 2021 and March of this year. Bastrop ISD sent a statement that said, quote, Bastrop ISD human resource officials learned about the allegation against Mr. Franks on March 25, 2022. He was placed on leave the same day and barred from campus. The incident was turned over to the Bastrop ISD Police Department for a full investigation. In keeping with our protocols and the law, the district reported the allegation to Child Protective Services and the State Board for Educator Certification. Mr. Franks resigned on April 6th. They go on to stress that the student's safety is a top priority.
This did not happen.
Frank's attorney, Ken Bigham, says they deny all of these allegations.
He feels at the end of the day, feels strongly at the end of the day, that he'll be exonerated when everything comes to light.
Franks has a background in public safety, and the district says he was a law enforcement teacher.
He's a family man and he's got children, and he's always been very active in the community.
This past fiscal year, the Texas Education Agency says there were 302 reports of improper relationships. Allegations like these were on the rise in the recent past, says Senator Paul Betancourt, who authored the bill to crack down on improper relationships.
The problem was that we had school districts actually resisting subpoenas from TEA on these cases. We've now increased penalties, made it an offense not to have principals and administrators report these cases.
A West Texas couple is under arrest after officers found their 8-month-old baby dead in their apartment. 23-year-old Cameron Gamage and 18-year-old Layla Pearson were arrested this week in Odessa. Gamage told investigators the baby wouldn't stop crying, and he tried to play with him by tossing him in the air and catching him. He says he then accidentally dropped the baby. According to Pearson, the baby had bruises and became, quote, fussy. And a couple days later, she discovered he wasn't breathing. Gamage is charged with capital murder, and Pearson faces a charge of neglect. In Dallas, police and AT&T are trying to stop copper thieves taking down lines and taking out phone, cable, and internet service. AT&T crews have been working all across the southwest Oak Cliff neighborhood in Dallas, restoring cable lines that have been cut by thieves. Images show burn sites where thieves burn off the outer covering of the copper cable so it can be sold raw to recyclers. In places like southwest Oak Cliff, the thefts and outages have happened several times now.
This neighborhood right here at Boulder and Keast has been hit some of the hardest. We've been hit multiple times at this location. I don't exactly know why they keep targeting this particular neighborhood, but the residents are getting discouraged by it. They keep getting knocked out. They keep being victimized and re-victimized by their cables constantly being cut.
Each section of cable between 2 utility poles can cost anywhere from $10,000 to $15,000 to replace. Similar issue is happening here in Kyle, where police are continuing to see a spike in catalytic converter thefts. The Kyle Police Department and a local auto repair shop recently teamed up for a free event to try and prevent thefts. Fox 7 Austin's Angela Shin has a story.
Mechanics are using this etching tool to etch people's license plates numbers into their catalytic converters. That way, if it gets stolen, it'll be easier to track. With this etching, the hope is to slow down thieves.
With the rise in converter thefts, and it's quite expensive to get it replaced, I think anything that I can do to help slow down these people from stealing converters is just a no-brainer.
Bernie Kepsel says his catalytic converter was stolen in November, and it took about $1,000 to replace.
It was hit at where I worked in downtown Buda, and it took them less than a minute by the time they pulled up next to the vehicle, by the time they had the converter off and were gone.
Dave's Kyle Auto Repair and the Kyle Police Department are trying to prevent those types of cases by offering a free etching event.
Catalytic converter thefts are on the rise, not only locally in Kyle and Central Texas, but across the state and nation.
Police say they've had 13 thefts reported so far this year in Kyle. Some people don't report, but officers say you should.
That way the officers know, okay, stuff's happening in this area, that we can keep more patrols in that area.
They say thieves usually target parking lots of places where a lot of people go. If yours is stolen, you'll know.
As soon as you go to start it, it'll be so loud that you won't even be able to drive it at that point.
If a stolen catalytic converter is easier to track, the odds of getting your property back and prosecuting the thief will be higher.
If it does get stolen at that point, and it does get to a recycling center at that point, they actually usually have GPS on site, which means they're going to actually check the background of the catalytic converter and see where exactly it originated from.
The reason they want the catalytic converters is because there's precious metals inside them, and that's what they're recycling it for. That's what they're taking out. They're cutting it up and taking that, and that's what they're making their money off of.
Plus, it's not likely a thief will try to get rid of the etching.
The chance of them going through each one individually is super slim.
If you missed today's event but want to have etching done, Dave's Kyle Auto Repair says they'll take appointments free of charge. In the meantime, if you see something suspicious, report it.
I just wish that we could do more to stop these thefts from happening. I think law enforcement maybe needs to do a little bit more about monitoring where these items are being sold.
And mechanics say about 55 cars came in today. In Kyle, Angela Shen, Fox 7 Austin News.
Thanks for watching this Fox 7 Austin Crime Watch. Our exclusive Crime Watch stories run each Monday on Fox 7 Austin News at 9. To learn more about the stories featured today, look for the links below this video. You can also find more stories on our website, fox7austin.com, or subscribe to the Fox 7 Austin YouTube channel.